My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me now and we will explore these topics and so much more with fascinating guests, authors, and experts who will guide us to Destination Unlimited. Do you ever have the sense that Earth is not your true home, that perhaps you are a visitor or even a volunteer who chose to be born here for a special purpose? My guest this week on Destination Unlimited, Gloria Hass, has experienced multidimensional contact since she was a child. This contact includes interactions with more than 20 extraterrestrial beings and the understanding that she is a gray hybrid. Gloria Hass is a visionary starseed, natural-born clairvoyant, healer, and has mediumistic abilities, along with having many gifts, including remote viewing, remote touching, hearing conversations, seeing and communicating with spirit, as well as very detailed visions and dreams with messages. She's the author of more than 30 books, including the 2023 Amazon bestseller, My Journey as a Grey Hybrid. She joins me this week to share her amazing path and experiences. Please join me in welcoming to Destination Unlimited, Gloria Hass. Welcome, Gloria.
Thank you, Victor. I'm glad to be here.
Gloria, you had a remarkable entry into this world. Please share with our listeners this amazing story.
Well, as I entered into this world, I was put into, my spirit and soul were put into that of a stillborn child my mother had. And before that, I was an extraterrestrial. I remember my life as one, and I also remember the day when it was time for me to leave that life. Then I was put into a holding room where other spirits go, and next thing I know, that I was brought to Earth. And my mother had said this for years. She said, I remember when you were born, you were stillborn, and you weren't breathing for 5 minutes, and the doctor was ready to give up. And I'm like, please, one more try. And the doctor, this was in 56, where they hang babies upside down and, spanked them on their backside to get them to breathe. So the doctor did that. My mom said that I let out the biggest scream, and I guess I had lost enough oxygen, my physical body did, to where I was blue from my elbows down to my hands and my knees down to my feet. And my mom said I was extremely cold and they couldn't warm me up. And all I did was cry about it. But I was brought home, and I remember it came back in a memory that my Earth father held me, and he said, I am so disappointed you're not a boy. Yeah. What had happened was my mother had been married before my father. None of this was public to us until after both of my parents died. And my dad always told, found out was my half-brother, that he was always my dad's son. My dad did adopt him. And my brother kept saying, no, I don't think so. I don't look like everyone. And my dad said, trust me, you're my son. And then when I found out that my dad said they first wanted 2 boys and then 2 girls, and I ruined it all. The truth is, I was my dad's only biological child, and he wanted a boy.
Oh.
I was a tomboy, but it wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough.
As I shared with you offline, I had a difficult relationship with my Earth father, also my birth father. And I healed that after a while. Were you able to heal that relationship with your father?
No, I was not. My dad ended up coming down having lung cancer, and it was not the primary site. And he wanted me I was living in Oregon at the time. He wanted me to come to California. And I said I couldn't because my car was on the fritz from driving back and forth from California to Oregon and back to, to move. And then having gone down for a visit, we're talking like a 17-hour drive that I ended up having to do in one day. And, it was long. I was in my 30s, but that was still a long drive. And it's one you have to be alert for because of the very winding and steep roads. And I didn't want to go, and I couldn't take time off of work. And I told my dad that, and I remember then that he was disappointed. He said, "Well, your brother will be here instead." I said, "I have a life." And he was very nasty about it. And then I remember 5 months before he died, he was diagnosed with cancer. And he wanted me my mom and dad had since gone to Indiana to be close to his mom for him to take care of her. And he was in his 60s and he'd passed at age 62. And I remember him saying, "We want you to come. Your brother's here. Your mom is here. And we're all going to tell you exactly what is wrong with your life and what you need to do." I didn't go. I was married at the time, and I told my husband, "If we're going, I want you to go with me." And he said, "No, I'm not going. I'm not taking time off of work. I'll take time off when your father passes to go for the funeral, but I can't take time off for both." And I said, "Well, I'm not going," because I needed someone in my corner. So my dad and I didn't resolve that, but I did visit him 2 weeks. My husband and I did visit him 2 weeks before he passed. And we drove, we flew to into Indiana. We were living in Maryland. And I did move around a lot. And I have so many rich experiences, but I remember going in, and my mom and my husband at the time went to the mall. And my mom said, "I'm sure you can take care of your dad." And he looked right at me and he said, "Don't expect an apology from me. I don't have it in me." I said, "But you had it in you to apologize to my brother, but you don't have it in me." He goes, "I'm too sick. I don't want to go through it." I said, "Fine, then you can go to your grave with unforgiveness."
Oh, so sorry.
Yeah. And I just looked at him and he goes, "I do love you." I said, "Well, this is the first that I've ever come, ever maybe experienced it from you." But I did forgive him, and I was able to move on after, years of therapy, being able to move past it. But I'm glad that I was able to forgive him and be able to move on. So my spiritual growth is not stunted.
Yeah. What was your experience like when you first saw a UFO?
Other than being sassy and mouthy, um, I was about, I think it's between the ages of 8 and 10. I think it was like 8, 9 or 9 and 10. I'm not really clear about, I think it was maybe 8 or 9. And it was a Saturday, and my mom and I were the only ones home. My dad and brother were gone, and we lived in the Mojave Desert in California. And I'm like, "Mom, can I see if, let's call her Andrea. That's not her real name. Can I go see if Andrea can go to the park?" Because we didn't live that far from the community park, within walking distance, like half a block. My mom said, "Sure." And I went to grab the phone. She goes, "No, no, no. Go down to her house," which is maybe um, an eighth of a mile, quarter of a mile. You just know, you just get up and walk as a child. You don't measure the distance. So I'm walking down, and her mom said we could go, she could go. So on the way back, at the time, there was the neighbor's house, then there's a huge field, well, a small field, width-wise, and then our house. And at the corner of the neighbor's house, as we were approaching it, we saw 2 houses down. Andrea goes, "Gloria," "What?" She said, "Looks like a horse laying on its side." And we were wondering if it was Nikki's horse, one of Nikki's horses, one of her thoroughbreds. And we went, oh my gosh. So we walked up real slow, not knowing what to do. Is the horse alive? Is it dead? Was it sleeping? And then we noticed that it was half a horse. The horse was dismembered.
Ooh.
And I'm just standing there going, oh my gosh, who could have done this? Who does this? And I'm looking around without any fear, without any shock. And Andrea's like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And she said, let's go get our moms. So she ran home, got her mom, and I went in to get my mom and said, Mom, there's a dead horse laying on the side of the road. Please come. We need your help. She goes, where's Andrea? She went to get her mom. Well, by the time that we got there was no horse, but there was a pool of blood laying on the ground and in the outline of a horse. And both of our parents thought we were playing a prank. Long story short, we both got beaten. We both got put on restriction. I got put on a week restriction. Andrew got put on a month restriction. And then, Andrea and her mom left, and my mom stood there. We couldn't convince our moms that we didn't play this prank. My mom said, where did you get the paint? That is not paint, Mom. That is blood. It was on the street, and there was a horse laying on top of it, and my mom didn't believe me. And Andrea's mom thought that I had instigated the prank ahead of time, and we never could convince our parents. But after Andrea left with her mom, my mom said, give me a few minutes to go inside. I need to cool off. And I said, okay. So I'm standing there in front of this, a pool of blood, which is drying. And I heard, look up. So I looked up, and the trees were like 65 to 70 feet tall in the neighbor's yard. And there was the underside of a round silver saucer. And I looked at it, put my hands on my hips, got very sassy and mouthy, and said, what did this horse ever do to you to deserve this? And I looked back down, looked back up, and the saucer was gone.
So you knew that
Yeah.
the saucer had dismembered this horse.
Yes, I knew.
And what was your reaction after that when it was gone?
I was mad. I was mad. I thought, I was just really mad because I had not had that type of experience as a gray extraterrestrial. And I wasn't in that department when I lived an extraterrestrial life. And when my dad got home, a lot of that blood had been gone, but there was still a faint outline of moisture. And by morning, that was even gone. But I was extremely upset because I loved animals. I still do love them a lot.
When did you realize that you were a gray hybrid, and how did this change your life?
Well, I sort of knew that I was an extraterrestrial and different, and it wasn't acceptable. It wasn't accepted. I told my brother about it, that I come from the stars, I come from another planet, and he laughed at me. He told my dad, they laughed at me. But when, I sort of ignored it, I put it in denial because I wasn't allowed to be the center of attention. I wasn't allowed to be different by my mom or my dad or my brother. So everything got buried, and I was still having memories. And I just thought I was having dreams of being on a spaceship doing rescue and recovery. But when it finally came about was 2022, the beginning of about March or April of 2022. The extraterrestrials, the Galactic Federation, came to me, and the Greys said, it is time for you to write your story. And I didn't want to write another book, but I did. And I was healing from a head injury from being rebellious and said, I'm not doing this anymore. Well, they gave me a year of grace before they let me know you will do this because this is what you signed up for. And the head injury really was an eye-opener from them that I was punished because I was rebellious. And that really gave me time to think. I had to relearn how to walk, how to talk well, and I'm still relearning the English language 4 years later. But in 2022, when my reading ability was still strong, had dropped to a second grade back up to an adult reading level, and I was told by my therapist to write, whatever uses both sides of the brain. I said, I can do this I'll write the book in fiction form. I did not want to come out. And they said, no, Gloria, it has to be in nonfiction form. Well, little sassy me wrote it in fiction form and had most of it written. And then in August of 2022, I was told you will write it in nonfiction form or you're gone. Meaning my purpose, I wasn't going to be living my purpose. I was going to physically die and no longer be here. And they said, you have a purpose, you signed the contract, you know the consequences. And I'm not saying that they tell that to everyone, but that if you're going to meet them, the extraterrestrial is going to be mean. I was an extraterrestrial. I signed up I was given a choice. I could have stayed on the spaceship or I could have come here for a greater purpose. And I chose to come here for a greater purpose. So I took the book that I was writing and I changed it into nonfiction form. And I'm getting to the part about my pregnancies. And then I found out that 4 of my pregnancies, first, and the second, third, and fourth, 3 of my pregnancies were with extraterrestrials. My second one was with a human and an extraterrestrial at the same time.
And all of these experiences you mentioned are in your best-selling 2023 book, My Journey as a Gray Hybrid. What else do you share with readers in that book?
Well, I share how my relationship has transformed with my children, how that has opened up more experiences that I'm able to share, both good and bad. I also share about how I was impregnated and my experiences being taken aboard a spaceship as a human and what that entailed. And I also share with people other metaphysical experiences that I've had, and mostly what my life was like growing up in California. When things started to change, when I lived in Maryland, I was in my 20s. And that's when I learned that I had telekinesis and was regressed in a past life. And then my life back in California, and then what transpired more when I moved to Arizona. Because there was a period of time when I didn't have any contact with the extraterrestrials, even though I wanted them to be me aboard. I had enough of this life when I was younger.
Yeah. I think I shared with you offline before we began that growing up as a child with all of my experiences, I was told I had an overactive imagination and was actually punished for things that I would share and say. And I would run into the closet as a 5-year-old, sit at the controls of my spacecraft and say, take me off of this place. I don't belong here. Take me home. And I came to recognize later in life that I was here for a purpose, just as you have recognized that you were here for a higher purpose. And in fact, my little Facebook tagline says, a visitor from a small planet staying to make a difference. So I think you and I are resonating on the same level.
We are. And I also share my experience of being in my make-believe spaceship in my book too.
Yes, absolutely. That's fascinating how we have that childhood memory and that reaction to wanting to go home, not recognizing that this place was not our primary home and sharing that experience. Now I understand you have a brand new sequel entitled Extraterrestrial, Metaphysical, Paranormal, and Visionary Encounters, years 22 and 2023. That's a mouthful. When will this book be available? And can you give us an idea of what you share in this book?
Okay. This book will be available probably in a few weeks, and I would say most likely by mid-February, definitely. And what I share in this book, it picks up where My Journey as a Gray Hybrid leaves off. I have pictures of extraterrestrial markings of where I had been in a fight with extraterrestrials on their spaceship. And I also have pictures of UFOs that I also share with this, some taken at night and some taken during the day. And they're varied and they're very different. And this also includes a cigar-shaped UFO, which was taken from my bedroom window.
Mm, that's wonderful. And what else do you share there?
I share about some parallel lives that touched my life and where I've been in the same energy with my parallel life. And one of them that is really interesting was where I was sitting on my love seat facing one way with with my now deceased dog, Bella, Jack Russell Chihuahua Terrier, laying beside me. And I look over because I saw something move. And on the opposite wall was the same love seat. There I was with a West Highland Terrier.
Oh,
Now, wow, no wonder I have an affinity for Westies.
that's beautiful.
And it is. And then I also share about walking my dog and entering into this different dimension. And I even write about the different dimension trips that I have taken when I've been teleported. And it's really interesting.
My guest is Gloria Hass. She has, by the way, more than 30 books. She's a prolific author, but her latest books are entitled My Journey as a Gray Hybrid and her soon-to-be released book, Extraterrestrial, Metaphysical, Paranormal, and Visionary Encounters, years 2022 and 2023. Gloria, please share with our listeners where they can get your books and find out more about you and your amazing life.
Well, all my books are on Amazon.com. And all you have to do is just type in my name and some of my books will come up. Or, there is a link that I have on my Twitter profile and my Facebook profile that will take you to my Linktree account, which will then take you, to Amazon. So that everything is available on Amazon.com.
And you have a new podcast coming up. When will that start?
This will start on Saturday, February the 2nd, and it's called Celestial Encounters with Gloria Hass. It is exclusively on Rumble. It will not be in audio form. It will only be in video format and on Rumble only. So if you go to Rumble, rumble.com, and type in Celestial Encounters with Gloria Hass, my channel will come up. I do have some other videos up there right now.
So what you're saying is when starting February 2nd, you're going to say, let's get ready to rumble.
Yes, it's better than rock and roll.
Absolutely. And we'll be back with more of Gloria after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
The cutting edge of conscious radio, Om Times Radio, IOM FM. Om Times Magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organization, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Om Times, co-creating a more conscious lifestyle.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week is Gloria Hass. Gloria, you had started talking about how people have long breaks sometimes in their experiences with sightings and contact. Please explain.
Well, I believe that because my sighting stopped when I was a child and didn't pick up again until my 20s. And I've heard some other people say the same thing. Well, then there are the people who have continue to have experiences, but with the long pause, I believe it's part of that person's purpose to have that pause for them to develop in their life for a certain reason that we don't know of. And then I believe they come back, the extraterrestrials come back after a long pause, especially if someone is a starseed or a hybrid, for them to have their awakening and realize that they're part of a cosmic family, and for their purpose to be opened up, for them to start questioning what is going on. I've been having these dreams only to find out they're not really dreams, but they are actually visits the person has had telepathically. So I believe we need to be more mature. The person needs to mature more and start to question things about their spirituality, about their relationships, and for them to have evolved to a certain point of acceptance. And some either do or don't accept.
Now, today, how often do you see UFOs and experience multidimensional contact with extraterrestrials?
I have contact just about every single day with extraterrestrials. The only time I see UFOs is if I make a conscious effort to look out my bedroom window or to go out on the patio and say ahead of time, I'm coming to, I want to see you. I want, to have that contact. And sometimes they show up actually, if they know I'm going to be out there on a regular basis, most times they show up and sometimes they don't.
And how do they manifest for you?
The spaceship comes about, and one time, and I think I share this in my book. I didn't hear anything. I opened up my bedroom window, pulling up the blinds, and all of a sudden there was this black triangle UFO with red lights underneath it. I would say maybe a few feet above the building of the apartment. And I went to go move. I mean, my mouth dropped open, like, whoa, look at that. And I was talking to my dog. I went, Bella, look, there's a UFO. I went to grab my phone, only they froze me in time. I was standing on my feet. I was not allowed to move until they were out of distance of being recorded. It's like, man, that really made a good picture.
As we shared offline until the last few years, it took a great deal of courage to openly share our mutual experiences with what some have labeled as high strangeness. When did you first come out? And how did this affect your life and your relationships, both personal and professional?
Well, I came out in January. Well, actually, I came out to a few friends who I wanted in the fall of 2022 after my book was written. And I had sent some emails out to people who run podcasts with paranormal UFO saying, sure, we would love to read your book, give an endorsement, and interview you. None of that came about. The one person who, gosh, she's so wonderful and kind, and you came up with a beautiful word for Mary Rodwell, and that is genuine.
Yeah.
I was watching a documentary from my library with her and David Icke about, I was wanting to learn more about the reptilians, and Mary Rodwell was on there. I went to her CERN website and I sent her a message. And at the time, she had a survey up there, how to know if you're a starseed. And I sent it to her and she said, you definitely are. And I asked her, would you read my book and give an endorsement? before I publish it. And she said, I would like to do that. And she wrote a beautiful endorsement. And that was validation. And I'm glad that I had her validation, sounds weird, confirmation and validation about who I am. Before I went, and I asked two friends who are into metaphysical things, and they also wrote endorsements, and they were accepting of who I am. And then I started branching out to more people and took a step out and posted on my timeline with my book. I've had people tell me I am demon filled and that I need an exorcism. I've also had some pastor friends completely drop out of my life, not wanting me to contact them. While I have had a few personal friends, I've had one girlfriend in particular say, wow, now I understand why you're so advanced, because you're an extraterrestrial. See, I would think that the abilities that I have and everything is normal.
Yeah.
But I found out that they're not for the average person. And along the way, I joined some experiencer groups, and while I was still bashed by them, and the UFO community as a whole ripped me apart, because these are people jockeying to have the limelight, I did find some people who have had shared experiences I have and had different ones who have come up alongside of me and lovingly said, I'll be your friend.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And as I shared with you when we first chatted, as far as I'm concerned, you and I are a spiritual family, and I hope that we continue these conversations and share our experiences together into the future. So thank you for being open about that. I also think I didn't share this one with you. As I had mentioned, when I would mention to my parents growing up in the 1950s, my experiences, I was told that I had an overactive imagination. I was sometimes punished for saying things that I've shared. And when I was in first grade, the teacher had, this is 1959, the teacher had a book on the classroom shelf called You Will Go to the Moon. And I said to the teacher, may I borrow the book? And she said, of course. And 2 weeks later, I had not returned the book. And she said, you know, that book was to be borrowed. You have to return it. And I said, I can't. And she said, why? I said, because it's wrong. She said, wrong? What do you mean it's wrong? Well, how do you know it's wrong? I said, because I've been there. Needless to say, my parents were called. The school counselor was called. The principal was called. Everybody's called. And basically, I was labeled as a kid with an overactive imagination. So coming out in the 1950s was not exactly the appropriate thing to do. And I sort of was quiet about it until my mid to late 30s when my path reopened and I was willing to share again. But so I totally understand how difficult it is for so many of us who are genuine experiences, contactees, hybrids, star seeds, to actually come out and share our story. So thank you for doing what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. It's my pleasure. That's also why I'm here. But it's not a flip. Oh, that's why I'm here. This is my purpose.
Yeah.
I'm invested emotionally with people to help them. I'm compassionate. I understand about the shock last October, I was in shock and I was angry when I found out about my kids, and here they've been taken from me, and then found out I had seen them in my 30s, which I do share in my book, not plugging it, but just letting people know I've been there. I've been angry. I've been shocked. I've cried. I've had lack of support. I've had support, and I'm here. I'm here to give genuine support.
Absolutely. You know, that's what our world needs right now. We need people who have open hearts, who have compassion, and who have understanding, and are willing to listen and truly hear what others have to say, and then give compassion and love back.
That's what we're supposed to do.
That's what we're supposed to do. That's our purpose. That's why we're here. What are some of the spiritual and energy gifts that you've recognized in your life?
Well, this morning I was reacquainted with telekinesis. I experienced it in my 20s, and then I've been told I need to reacquire my skill. And that happened this morning. I was so elated and so ecstatic it happened. And it was just a thought of what I was going to do. Then it happened. And my other gifts were levitation since a child, but I stopped doing that in my 30s because I could walk and float above the ground, above the floor, and I could dance above the floor without making noise. And when that started getting pointed out, I stopped levitating completely. I can do remote viewing, and I recently was in contact with a young man, and he was asking questions, and I could visualize everything he was talking about. And he asked me, "Is this because you're familiar or you're seeing it?" I said, "I'm seeing it." And I can do remote touch, a clairvoyant. I can hear voices. I see spirits. And
And you also
I
have a path as a healer, especially with animals. Tell us about that.
Yes, mostly horses. And recently, well, also with some dogs recently. I remember being at a riding stable, and I was waiting for my ride because I'm no longer able to drive with a head injury. And I was, can't remember if this was, no, this was before my head injury. I was waiting for a ride. I don't own a car because it's cheaper to use paratransit. So I'm waiting at the horse stable. I was there for hug therapy, and this woman had a 17-year-old horse named Roy, and he's the great grandson of Secretariat, gorgeous horse. And and Roy didn't want to walk, and he was really stiff. And he just did not want for anyone to be on his back that day. And she was saying, "Okay, we'll just brush you and, and just groom him." And I asked her, and I explained to her, I can work on horses. I can heal. I have a gift of healing. May I go ahead and help with Roy? And she said, "That's up to Roy." And I looked at Roy in the face and I said, "Roy, can I make your stiffness and pain go away?" And I explained how I would do that with my hand, not touching him, but being above him. And he nodded yes. And I went ahead and put my hand over him, and he had arthritis. And I went ahead, it was like 15, 20 minutes, and went over his entire spine and his right side, but his left side was especially sore. And I did feel an area, and that is where he had been harmed by a previous owner. He had been abused.
Oh.
And then when Roy was done, he walked away. And for even a month later, he was still acting like he was a 7-year-old.
Mm. Animals are really empathic, aren't they? Especially horses and dogs, I find.
Yes, I find that too. Yes, I connect with horses more than I do animals. And recently I did distance healing on 2 different animals, one in another country and one in New Mexico. And for the one in New Mexico, it was only overnight. 2 healings, and the dog was fine. And the one in Canada, it took like 4 days before the dog started showing signs of better healing, and had been sick for 2 weeks. And the owner thought she was going to have to put the dog down, and she doesn't have to. They're doing really well.
That's wonderful. You've also served as a forensic visionary, helping people and law enforcement find missing and lost loved ones. Is there a story you can share about that?
Yes, there is. I remember I heard go online. This was in, I think, 2020 or 2021. I heard go to Facebook. So I'm like, okay. So I go on Facebook, and in my feed should not have been a post from someone I didn't know, but there was. And they were talking about a missing loved one and everything else. And I started private chatting with the girlfriend and a few friends. And I could see visions of And I've never been to Idaho, and I could see visions of trees and bushes that were tall enough, looked like trees to me, but they were bushes, and water and what had happened to him. And the girlfriend had something similar, and they were able to find him, only it was too late.
Mm-hmm.
But still, he was able to be, at least he was recovered.
Wonderful.
So the family and girlfriend could have closure.
Wonderful. Wonderful. What advice would you offer to our listeners about discovering and channeling their special gifts?
You freely received these gifts. I believe in freely giving of the gifts. I don't charge for anything I do. I did charge, and I didn't feel right about it, even though I received some money in return. But I feel better and more open when I freely give. Practice your skills. Practice with somebody who knows what they're doing, not someone who says they know what they're doing. I've come across some people who fake it to look good, to make money. There are people out there who, like me, freely give. They'll help you, hone your gifts. And there are also videos that you can watch where people tell you this is what you can do and this is how it's done, and then practice. But always use your gifts for good. Do not use them for bad. I used to use my gifts for bad, and they were taken away for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I used to put curses on people. I practice the darker arts. And now I stopped doing that years ago. But if someone needs a healing, or I see someone in need, I'll pray and do a healing quietly for them, because they may not be accepting. And also find out that there are people out there who aren't really ready to have a healing, even though they say they are, and people who will be skeptical. Know who you are, know in your heart who you are, and in discovering what's your passion, what do you feel like you're being drawn or called to do, and then practice and study it. And if it doesn't feel right, then that's not the path for you. Then ask, what more do I need to learn? What more do I need to know? Am I on the right path?
Absolutely. The wisdom of my guest, Gloria Hass, will be back with more after these words on the Om Times Radio Network.
Humanity Healing International is a small nonprofit with a big dream. Since 2007, HHI has been working tirelessly to bring help to communities with little or no hope. Our projects are not broad mandates, nor are they overnight solutions, but they bring the reassurance that no one is alone and that someone cares. To learn more, please visit humanityhealing.org. Humanity Healing is where your heart is.
So I'm a cat, and I just moved in with this new human. And she's got this little toy she's always playing with, all day long. Tap, 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 bloop, bloop. She can't put it down. There it is. Oh, and get this. She even talks to it. Last week, she asked it for Chinese, and guess what? Egg rolls showed up. Like magic. Humans have cool toys.
A person is the best thing to happen to a shelter pet. Be that person. Adopt. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the ShelterPetProject.org.
Back on Destination Unlimited, my guest this week, Gloria Hass. Gloria, what has been your understanding and experience with different species of ETs?
Well, just like with people, there's good and bad. We label as good and we label it as bad experiences, because that's what most people are used to. I've had good. I've had a positive experience, and I've also had negative experiences. And there was a time when it's like, why is this a real reptilian following behind me? Why is there a reptilian in my bedroom? Why is there a panther-like being in my apartment? Why am I seeing and a Nuki standing in the middle of the street. And what have come to understand recently is that they were protecting me. They weren't watching me to, take me off. They were protecting me. There are some who will protect you from different species, and it's just not one, because as the Galactic Federation, they're made up of many different beings. And we also have the many different beings here. And there are some that will come along to find out, why is she being, or he, why is this person, being visited by this species or beings? What do they have? And they're curious, and both negative and positive can come and visit. And I've seen orbs, and now that really got the hair on the back of my neck raised up, because they were studying me. And that made me very uncomfortable. Instead of asking them, how may I be of service to you? I'm just like, I'm going to go take a picture of them to post it on social media. And then they flew out through the window. But I've also seen people go through portals. I've seen gray extraterrestrials walking across the street. Now, my dog wanted to go after it, and then it dematerialized. But I have noticed that you can coexist with them. There are some here that they're not here to do harm. They're here to protect. And if people are finding them on their webcams, they're not looking through your trash cans. They're just making sure that all is well.
What about interdimensional beings?
Well, I've never really thought about it, because to me, it's normal. Because I am an interdimensional being, and experience more interdimensional life than I do my physical life. And it's a beautiful place to be. And the beings, they all, they can get along. They have a wonderful energy. And I have experienced quite a few of them. And the more open a person is to the more positive side of things, I believe they will attract more of the interdimensional beings who can guide you and direct you in the way that lovingly, in the way you need to go. They will enhance your experience and with your open mind, and enrich your life. And they will show you a world beyond this physical realm of what is available, what experiences are out there, like going maybe on a spaceship, or just going through space, seeing the energy, or maybe their energy being around you to help rise up your energy frequency.
You are featured in the soon-to-be-released Season 2 of a documentary entitled Encounters: The Complete Interviews. When and where will this be aired, and what do you discuss in that film?
Well, right now, Season 1 is on Tubi only. It's supposed to be on reveal.net, REVEEL.net soon. My interview is the last interview of Season 2. And I talk about being a hybrid and my experiences of what I also have outlined in my book, My Journey as a Gray Hybrid. And I was asked to I approached the film director back in October of 2022 about being on the documentary. And he said that would be great, because he's out there to help reduce stigma. And I talk about, about people keeping an open mind, and other things that have happened to me with, my children, and some of the things that we have touched on here today. But it's just another medium, another confirmation on getting a documentary out with more than one person to say, hey, we have had these experiences and it's real. And that's what we all basically talk about, and what I talk about.
Absolutely. We are living in a world that is very different and very more challenging than the one we knew as children. It's a world filled with divisiveness and anger, disruptions in planet and climate, and many of these are instilling fear in many people. What message would you share with us about this and how we may find understanding, hope, and peace?
I had someone ask me last night when I was doing a podcast interview, what do you think about this thing that happened in Miami? Have you heard of this person, who has shared their stories and they have all this negative experience? What about the news? I'm going to let you know, I don't watch the news. I don't usually listen to other people's interviews unless the topic grabs my attention. Instead of focusing on all the anger, the disruptions, I look at what can I do to be of service to people and the planet. I refuse to live in fear, even though there are powers that be are doing their best to instill that in me with the government and deep state. They send people to me to have me stay in fear. I refuse. I am going to focus on raising up my frequency, live in boldness and courage, send healing out to everyone on this entire planet, including those powers that be that are on the negative end of the spectrum. So I can go ahead and raise up the frequency. When I hear about the climate and the disruptions in the planet, it saddens me. And I send out more healing. It really saddens me to see tsunamis and all these tornadoes and these snowstorms and the extreme heat going on everywhere. And I'm encouraging people, send out healing, send out love. I believe that if we raise the frequency enough, we will most likely have less disruptions in the planet. And I know a lot of the climate change is due to the HARP program and the chemtrails, which has just come to light in an article that came to my attention that this is on purpose. But some things can get out of hand. When you think of things they're in theory form, you don't expect a lot to happen, a lot to accelerate. And I believe that this is what has happened. So turn off social media, turn off the news, and do what you can to raise your vibration. Get in groups of people to help raise the vibration and continue to send out healing. And you're being compassionate to those who need help, and see what we can do to keep hope, find our inner peace, which will eventually radiate out to the physical planet, and help other people who are less fortunate. And that's what we're all here. We are all here to help one another. We're not just individual islands. We are here to help everyone. And going to live on an isolated island isn't going to help you, because you're still going to need help from other people.
Absolutely.
There's never going to be a perfect society. So why don't we all create mentally and spiritually the life that we want in our homes and emanate it out to the world at large?
In the 1990s, I used to attend a series of meditation and yoga retreats in a zendo in upstate New York. And in one of those retreats, I started seeing in my mind's eye mathematical exponents, the power of 1, the power of 10. And this poem came through me, which I think really resonates with the message that you're sharing. It's called The Power of 1. It says, the energy flows from the love of the sun and charges a soul, the power of 1. That energy shared with a spirit that's new. A heart opens up, the power of 2. Ebbing and flowing from women to men. Hearts on the wavelength, the power of 10. And when all of the millions with compassion run, the birth of the new mind, the power of 1. Thank you. My guest, Gloria Hass. Gloria, please, one more time, tell our listeners where they can get all of your wonderful books and find out more about you and your amazing work.
You can find all of my books on Amazon.com. I also have blank line diaries, journals for people that if they just want to sit, they have beautiful covers, more nature filled on some of them, and some are space oriented, or one of them mostly is hearts, things that I believe resonate with a person's heart for more love to come out. And you can reach me on Facebook, more like following me. If you send a friend request, please send a message that you heard me on this interview and you want me to accept your friend request. It all depends on your profile, what is showing, whether I will accept it or not. There's some profiles I won't accept, especially if they're not of a positive nature or they're of a nature that I don't imbibe with. And you can also find me on X, Gloria Hass, Hass.
And your new podcast starting this Saturday, February 2nd, Celestial Encounters.
On Rumble. And you don't need to have a Rumble membership to watch it. You can go on there and you can search for Celestial Encounters with Gloria Hass, and you can watch it.
And like I said before, let's get ready to rumble. Gloria,
Yes.
Thank you so much. It is so wonderful to have you on and share everything that you've experienced, your wisdom, and most importantly, your great big heart. Thank you, Gloria.
Thank you, Victor.
And thank you for joining us on Destination Unlimited. I'm Victor, the Voice Furman. Have a wonderful week.